Hello, Tyler.
Hi, guys.
Tyler.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing.
Great,
I'm
man.
doing great.
Good to hear.
Great, man. Thank you.
It's really nice having you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here, guys. I'm excited. I didn't even know we had a podcast in Brazil. This is cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're actually nearing 200 episodes right now. I think the last one we did was 186, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, nice to meet you, Tyler. I am Gabriel. Okay.
Nice to meet you, Gabriel. And is it Enrique?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you prefer Tyler or Forno or?
Either one. Both of them work. I go by both. Whatever you'd prefer, I'm good.
Okay. We'll probably mix it up a little bit during the interview.
Sounds great. I will let you know, Monty Kiffin just passed away. Or it was announced a few minutes ago, and I just picked up my dog from daycare. So the first couple minutes, I'm gonna write a quick piece about it, just so you guys don't think I'm ignoring you.
Okay.
Oh.
But I'm good at multitasking, so we can go whenever you guys are ready.
Okay then. So first of all, I want to thank you for being here, for taking a few minutes for us. It's very important for our project here in Brazil. You know, we are crazy about Minnesota Vikings. We cover a team that isn't even from our country. And in the last few weeks, we recorded with Darren Wolfson and Tarnistrom, who even recommend you to record with us. So I invited you and you accepted right away. So thank you, man. It's an honor for us.
Absolutely, guys. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to chat some Vikings football, and let's have a good time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And before we start asking some questions, could you introduce yourself for the Brazilian public? Tell us what you do, what you like, and your life in general.
Yeah. So, I'm obviously Tyler. I started doing this about 5 years ago. I've been a Minnesota Vikings fan pretty much my whole life. You guys can see it. I don't know if the audience can, but I've got Warren Moon jerseys framed hanging in the background. He's my favorite player of all time, and I've just fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the pageantry, all the technical elements, and I eventually decided, you know what, I'm going to try and make this my life and my job. And I've been lucky enough to be in that position where this is my job, and it's my passion. Is something I get to wake up every day and go do. And I think that's really cool. And yeah, otherwise I'm here with my two dogs. I've got a 2-year-old Frenchie named Odie, and I've got a almost 2-year-old lab pity mix named Cheddar. And otherwise I'm married. We're almost 4 years. I can't believe she's been with me. Well, it's almost 7 years, but 4 years married. So
Okay.
yeah,
Nice.
that's pretty much the long and the short of it. I like beer, I like pro wrestling, and I love football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
That's
I
really
love
nice.
dogs.
Yeah, I think everyone loves dogs. Come on, it's dogs.
Yeah.
Before I would like to just introduce myself a little bit. My name is Henrique. I'm from São Paulo. We will ask you this later, but I'm from the city where the Eagles Packers game will be played later here in Brazil. And it's really an honor having you here. And it's as Gabriel mentioned, you're the third one that we have here, and it's a really nice thing for people from the United States that do this for a living. So actually come here, spare a few minutes to talk with us. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to get all of this out of the way because I'm nervous.
No, it's okay.
I was watching your podcast. I think you did it yesterday or the day before, and you also did an article about position battles during training camp for the Vikings. Which one of these position battles are you most excited about, and which one you think is the most important one?
The most important one, I think, is going to end up being wide receiver 3 because they are going to be so pivotal on the offensive side of the football. The Vikings run 11 personnel more than 60% of the time. That means that you're going to see a lot of that third wide receiver. KJ Osborne had the role for the past few years, and now they're going to be 4th or 5th on the pecking order as far as getting receptions once TJ Hawkinson is healthy. But at the end of the day, you still want to have a quality player. Brandon Powell's a quality player, but is he big enough? Because the whole reason behind running a lot of 11 personnel is you have good blocking wide receivers. That's why the Rams are so successful at it. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are 2 of the best. And they were able to block well enough to compensate for not having that extra tight end on the field. And it made the passing game that much more lethal. Now, if Powell's not that guy, is it going to be Jalen Nailor? Well, Nailor can't stay healthy. Trent Sherfield is fine, but he's not going to give you really any upside. And then you have guys like Tristan Jackson, who's been with Kevin O'Connell since he came out of the league from Syracuse, and Thayer Thomas, who O'Connell has raved about on multiple occasions this offseason. Who's going to win that job? Who's going to earn it? And I think it's a very pivotal one, and one that I would want the Vikings to address with a lot of resources next offseason, whether it be money in free agency or a high draft pick. I even talked about on Purple Daily on Draft that the Vikings should consider wide receiver in the first round next year, because I think that wide receiver 3 position is so important. And that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing how that shapes up. Obviously, yeah, cornerback is one of note. And even before the tragic passing of Kyrie Jackson, nobody really knew what cornerback was going to look like. And even so, not a whole lot has changed. We don't know what cornerback is going to look like. We don't know who's going to step up, who's going to be that starter opposite of Byron Murphy Jr., who's going to play in nickel packages. There's so many question marks about that position that I think that's going to be really intriguing to see how it shapes out. I do think that Andrew Booth Jr., if he makes the team, it's going to be because he's going to play, not just because he's going to make the team. He's going to play. And I had him as a top 15 prospect in 2022. I'd like to see him live up to that, but he hasn't. And can he figure it out? Can that light switch click on in his head? I don't know. Those are the 2 I'm going to be looking at. A lot of people say guard, but I just think it's going to be Brandel and Ingram, and Reisner is going to be the odd man out. I don't think Reisner's that good, especially in the run game. So there are a lot of interesting position battles, but none that are like, oh my God, kind of position battles, because Darnold's going to be the starter unless McCarthy turns into Iron Man. Like, it's going to be a training camp more so about development than it is going to be about who's going to start. And I think that's a good thing.
Okay. And this year in the draft, we had 2 first-round picks with JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. And what do you expect? What do you expect from them in their rookie season? And do you think they will be the face of the franchise in the future?
I do think that they're going to be the faces of the franchise. Everybody who's followed me, and I'm sure you guys know this as well, I wanted Chop Robinson. I did not want Dallas Turner. I was very low on Turner, incredibly high on Chop. I had Chop as my 4th ranked player in the class, which was way off of consensus, and I was okay with that. But I will say, when I went back to the film and watched Turner from a different lens, from a Vikings specific lens, because when I do my draft evaluations, I look at it from an overall scope. I don't look at it when I do my grading from a Vikings perspective only, because I want to try and figure out who they are, not necessarily slanted to the Vikings. Then once I have my grades, then I have that conversation. So Turner, I had a 2nd round grade on. I didn't know if there was enough polish there. And I was worried that because he played for Nick Saban, that there wasn't that kind of polish. Well, the way the Vikings want to use him, I completely get it. I completely understand that the Vikings wanted to take him because he is a chess piece compared by both Brian Flores and Nick Saban to Dante Hightower from the New England Patriots, who was an edge rusher, but then played like linebacker and also played on the defensive line. He was just a guy that was everywhere. And Turner has those kind of movement skills. So I'm very intrigued by how that fit's going to work with how Flores likes to play defense. And then McCarthy. They're going to be very patient with him, which is a good thing. But can they take him to another level? Can they make things... Can they put him into a situation to be successful? while considering the talent around him? I think so. I really do. I'm fascinated to see how quickly he gets in the game, because O'Connell has set multiple benchmarks. Like, if you hit this, you will play. And it's not going to be rushed. It's going to be when McCarthy's ready. And then you have Sam Darnold, who, if McCarthy's ready, but Darnold's playing great, what do you do? And I think that's going to be interesting. But yeah, McCarthy and Turner, they drafted him to be franchise cornerstones. And if they both hit, it's a massive win.
Still talking about the draft. Sadly, we had Kerry Jackson passing away this last weekend. So I think he was the consensus day 3 guy to be an impactful player, at least if not right away, maybe next year. But of the other 3 picks, I think it's Levi Drake, Jurgens, and Walter Rouse, also Will Reichard. Which of them you think can be contributors right away, right in 2024? I think Will Reichard side, because if he's the team's kicker, he will be a contributor, he will play. But of the other 3 guys, which of them do you think can have an impact? Also, if any undrafted free agents they want to mention here as well.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting one. I'm going to kind of go to the UDFA ranks and talk about Gabriel Murphy, the edge rusher from UCLA. We talked a lot about Ivan Pace last year, how he looked really, really good during the offseason and looked great during training camp and was able to do a lot of these things. And it's like, well, how did we get him as UDFA? Well, it's because he had a size defect for the position. He was 5'10 and a half, 235 pounds, but he was also an anomaly because he was a pass rusher at middle linebacker. That's not something you see in the National Football League. You aren't a pass rusher from that middle linebacker spot. And that kind of unique profile pushed him down, and he went undrafted. And the NFL is paying for it now, because now the Vikings have a starter at linebacker halfway through his rookie year for the rookie minimum with a signing bonus of $20,000. Not even a decent signing bonus. $20,000. That's nothing. And that the Vikings are going to reap the benefits there. Murphy is a similar player. He's 6'1.5", 251 pounds, but he's got 30.5 inch arms. Incredibly small arms. That doesn't bode well for anybody. And if the offensive lineman gets their hands on him, it's over. He can't escape because they're locked up. And can you maximize the ability he has? Because he's got the athleticism, he's got the pass rush prowess, but he just doesn't have the length. Is that length going to be deficient? Is it going to be debilitating? And I think there's a real case to make that it is debilitating. But it's also one of those things where if you use him in the right way, which Brian Flores can do, you can still get a lot out of this player. So I think he could be a weapon on special teams, especially with how this new kickoff rule is. And you're going to want to have bigger bodies out there and not just speed, because there's going to be a lot less running. It's going to be more like a zone rushing play. You're going to want to have some bigger guys. And I think defensive ends at his size with that kind of athletic profile could really do some damage on special teams.
It's interesting that you say about Murphy, because my next question will be about Gabriel Murphy. I saw in X that you put Gabriel Murphy with potential as well, like Ivan Pace Jr. in the last year. So what do you think made Ivan Pace stand out so much as a rookie DFA? And what similarities do you see between Pace and Gabriel Murphy?
I think it's their athletic profiles paired with the size deficiencies, where for Murphy, it's the arm length. And for Pace, it was 5'10 and a half, 235. And he was just such a unique player because of that pass rush ability. And being overlooked like that because of something that the NFL is just like, I don't know. And NFL organizations are guilty of this all the time. And to a point, they're right. You don't want to guess on an outlier and be wrong, because then your bosses can look at you and say, well, you were wrong on somebody everybody else knew. Why were you wrong? Why weren't you right like everybody else? Because they all passed on him, but you didn't. And then you have to answer that question. So teams can be a little conservative in that fact, where once you see a player have success in a certain role, like Deebo Samuel has success in the Deebo role. Before him, Percy Harvin. Without those guys, without Cordell Stewart in the 90s being Slash and being able to do all these different things, it lays a blueprint for people after them. That's why innovators are so important. And I think because of Pace's success, despite those limitations, that's why I think Murphy has a really good chance to succeed with the Minnesota Vikings, because they already proved that they can maximize a guy with those limitations. And even though it's a different position, I think they will with Murphy as well.
In the last, not in the last, but the entirety of Coisa do Fluminense's tenure here in Minnesota, we've seen him being quite aggressive in the trade market. His first draft, the trading down with the Lions, then trading down with the Packers, and then in the middle of the season he trades for TJ Hawkinson. 2023, a little quieter, but then no trading for Dobbs, which was necessary after Kirk Cousins went down. And this draft, he traded up for one spot for McCarthy. Before the draft, he traded up with Texans for the 23rd pick. And then in the draft, traded from 23 to 17 to draft Dallas Turner. What's your opinion on being this aggressive on the trading market? And if you think that of course, TJ Hawkinson was a huge success, but his first trades, everyone said it was really bad, even at the time. But with hindsight, even worse. And now with the two trades, do you think this is something that we will see even more, not just from Kwesi, but from other GMs as well?
The one interesting thing about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and his trades is there really is no consistency with how he's kind of gone about his process. And I think that's really important to note, because look, everybody talks about, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah comes from the world of Wall Street. Yeah, well, what does the world of Wall Street do? They look at the market and they play the market and they try to gain value based on the market. That's all Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is trying to do. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's just trying to take an old school approach, which is what every general manager's trying to do, get the most value, but look at it from a different perspective. And I think he's had some hits. The trade down with the Green Bay Packers, that same draft, they got Christian Watson, he's flashed, but he's kind of been a little bit of a bust. And they got 2 second-round picks. They got incredible surplus value. And they used those picks to get Andrew Booth and Ed Ingram. Now, have those players worked out? Not necessarily, but the process was good. And then you have the idea of the Lewis Cine trade. Everybody's like, you got Lewis Cine. Well, you're more mad about the results than the process. The process analytically was great. The analytics trades loved it because you get 2 top 34 picks and you also get 66 and 12. Like, there wasn't a player that the Vikings loved. That Jameson Williams isn't good. He hasn't proven to be good at all. And I think he's given a little too much grief for that. Now, would I have made that trade? No, I would have traded up a couple spots to get Chris Olave, but that's a whole nother story. I loved Chris Olave. I thought he could be the next Justin Jefferson with their play style, body types, and all that kind of stuff. I think the way Kwesi's using his process, if they end up getting a Super Bowl here, and how he's moneyballed some positions and he's paid big money for his star players, I think that's going to be copied in the league. But because he's the first of his kind, you have to have success in order for people to copy you. And I don't know if he's had the kind of success to really be copied at this point, but I do think that he's done an overall good job. I don't know if we're really going to be able to completely predict some of those trades that you mentioned, because it's all about what the market is telling you. And the market, whether it be the stock market or the NFL, it changes consistently. And I think it's going to be fascinating to look back. Well, let's give it like 2 more years. Look back at his first 4 full years in the job and see, okay, this is how he's handled all of these situations, because we just don't have enough of a data set right now to really be able to make any determinations on what he is. But let me tell you, the league's watching and they're very curious on how everything works.
we know he is new in this job, right?
Mhm.
So, what do you think he has improved the most since taking on the job, and what does he need to improve?
I think the one thing that's really impressed me is his willingness to adapt. Look, the 2022 NFL draft wasn't great. There were a lot of factors that go into it. He didn't have his scouting staff. He didn't have a lot of things working in his favor. He was only on the job for 3 months, and they prioritized just the 10-yard split. The best players from that draft have been Ed Ingram and Ty Chandler. The best players from that draft should have been Louisina and Andrew Booth Jr. And the fact that you didn't get that, I think is a good learning experience, because the next year they didn't really look at the 10-yard split at all. They started using GPS data. And the way I kind of deducted that is looking at their athletic testing and then looking at the game film, because the athletic testing wasn't super high, but some of the numbers that you get from the GPS data have been fantastic. And I think that matters. That is a big part to having this conversation, is learning and adapting. And I think Adolfo Mensa has done a really good job of that. And I think he still needs to get a little bit better there. Understanding the market, understanding contracts, but he's also really new in the job. And you know what? That's okay. But I think he's shown a willingness to adapt, a willingness to listen, take criticism. And those are very difficult things for somebody in his position, because someone in his position could have a really big ego and not want to listen to those people. And I think he's done a really good job of that. And I want to see more of that and more evolution in how he continues to build out this team. And I think it's trending in the right direction.
Going out from front office more to the field part, this basically the same question that Gabriel asked you, but about Kevin O'Connell.
Mhm.
Or his most improved area and what he needs to improve the most, in your opinion, of course.
Okay. So I think the most improved area is some of the play calling. I think he's underrated as a play caller by the fan base, because people are upset with the results, and that's fine. You can be upset with the results. But if the play is there and the player doesn't execute it, that's not on the play calling. And I think fixing some of those things in game, I would like to see him get a little better at, where you have the play's open, and the result doesn't hit. How are you adapting and adjusting? I think that's part of the reason why the running game has completely gotten lost at times, because it doesn't work. Second play, it doesn't work. Oh, let's just throw it. Let's just give up. I think it's more nuanced than that, but that's the basic gist of it. I want to see more evolution. I want to see better. And I think that we're going to see that from Kevin O'Connell. And I'm really excited to see that. He's done a great job so far as head coach. And I think just the continuing evolution of learning and adapting and then figuring out how to fix things on the fly, I think are all great.
No, sorry. Bye. That was it. Please.
You already talked about the left guard and receiver 3. We had a question about that, about who would be the starting week 1. Do you want to comment anything else, or can we move on?
No, I think we can move on. I think those are going to be the two of the really big positions to kind of watch for. I just don't think Dalton Reiser's good, especially in the running game. He can't climb to the second level and block linebackers. He's just not holding up well at the point of attack. He can pass block, but he can't run block at all, which is weird, because the Vikings last few years have had guys who can run block but can't pass block. So it's interesting to see the shoe on the other foot. But I do think that there's something to be said for how good Blake Brandel can be. And I think Ed Ingram's underrated. People still remember his rookie year when he kept stepping on Kirk's foot. That's over. We can move on.
Yeah, I'm going to add another question here that it wasn't in the script. So, from Gabriel. Do you think the additions of Blake Randall and Aaron Jones by themselves can help solidify the running game, or you think schematically maybe there's something to be done? Maybe be more like a Ram style, take a more of a Ram style approach, using more man blocking, or do you think the zone blocking is good, but we needed just maybe a better guard, like you say with Dalton Reisner, and a better running back, because we've seen Madison last year wasn't the solution. David Cook had a bad year in 2022. So it was also a position that it was way worse than we used to see. Now we had 10 years of Adrian Peterson, then we have prime Dalvin Cook, but the last 2 years the running back position was not very good in Minnesota.
I think that's a really interesting question and something that I've thought about a lot. I think they're going to, and I think they already showed some of it last year, utilizing some of those more man concept approaches, the gap plays that the Los Angeles Rams have shifted to. They signed Jonah Jackson. They traded for Kevin Dotson and gave him a big extension. Those guys are movers. They are going to pick you up, forklift you, and move you out of the way so the running back can get through the hole. With the selection of Ingram, I wondered if they were going to do some of that. And I think last year's play calling bared some of that out, especially with Ty Chandler. Chandler's vision isn't great in zone concepts. In gap, he just runs and he sees the hole, he hits it, and boom, lots of yards. Adrian Peterson was more successful in a lot of the gap concepts than zone concepts. That's just how some guys are. And I think the gap concepts are coming back a little bit because defensive tackles are getting so good and zone concept offensive linemen are so small, they're getting bullied. So now it's almost, you want to have bullies in the middle. And I think the Vikings are in a great position for that. I think they're in a position. Randall's not a bully, but he's 6'7", 315. He's not small. He's not going to get pushed around. Ed Ingram's about 315 as well. He's not getting pushed around. His biggest issue is he's a heavyweight boxer. He tries to knock you out every time and he gets burned. If he can kind of calm down that approach just a little bit and stay more consistent, I think he can be a very good starter long term. I'm very high on Brandel as well, especially because he's moving inside and he doesn't have to deal with edge rushers running around him, which was his biggest problem at offensive tackle. So I do like the idea of running more man gap power concepts, as you mentioned. And I think the Vikings can take things to another level if they're able to stay successful with
it. Still in the running game, but more like a personal question. You mentioned earlier about the wide receiver 3. Do you think that with maybe a less trusted wide receiver, like we had KJ Osborne until last year, and two really, really good pass catching tight ends in TJ Hawkinson when he's healthy, and Robert Tonyan, we'll see the Vikings shift even more to 12 personnel, and maybe even 13 sometimes using these two and Josh Oliver? Or do you think it will still be a heavily 11 personnel offense, even maybe not using Hawkinson and Tonyan?
It's a great question. I don't know. And I think that's going to be something fun that we can watch during the training camp in the preseason and into the regular season. Because if you have great pass catchers at tight end, it gives you an advantage because you're not facing a cornerback. You're usually facing a linebacker. I'll take TJ Hawkinson against a linebacker all day. I'll take Josh Oliver against one too. But we do know that Kevin O'Connell comes from that Sean McVay tree. They like to do 11 personnel. So I really don't know what direction they're going to go, but it's a great question and one that I'm going to have a lot of intrigue with when I continue to watch this team. But we'll have to check back in on that after the first few weeks of the season and kind of see how things are going. And then once Hawkinson comes back, let's check back in again on that, because I think those two samples could end up looking very different, because when you have Hawkinson in the fold, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with that 12 personnel versus when you don't have him in the fold. So great question, but I don't have a solid answer because we don't know. And that's the cool part about football. We can try and figure it out as we go.
So, unfortunately, we will likely see Harrison Smith playing his final season in the NFL. Do you
Mhm.
believe his successor is already on the team, or will safety be a position niche in 2005?
I think they'll just keep the guys on the roster. Um, they like Josh Metellus a lot. I think Cam Bynum probably gets an extension within the next 60 days. And Theo Jackson, like, he's not above Lewis Cine on the depth chart because Cine is bad. Theo Jackson's above Lewis Cine on the depth chart because Theo Jackson is good. And I think that is something that doesn't get talked about enough, which completely understandable. Lewis Cine's a first round bust. Theo Jackson was a 6th round pick the Vikings claimed off of waivers. Not a lot of fanfare there. And they like Jay Ward, who is kind of like a Josh Metellus in his play style, but he can also play outside corner. At LSU, he played over almost 200 snaps at outside corner, and he played a bunch in the slot. He played a bunch in the box and also as a deep safety. So he's a true versatile chess piece. If you can continue his development, and if you want to keep running 3 safety sets once Harrison Smith is done, I think you have the roster to do that. And safety is arguably the strongest position on this team. And
Yeah.
even if you had to put Lewis Cine in the game, I don't think it's going to be an adjunct disaster. He's just nowhere near good enough compared to the rest of these guys, which to me is more of the problem. And will it stink to have Harrison Smith gone? Yeah. But I also think it's going to be cool that he'll have played his entire career with the Minnesota Vikings. Something that, look, that doesn't happen. That does not happen in this day and age for a safety to stay with the team his entire career. But Harrison Smith is a different dude. He talked about, I completely forgot about football. I was helping my brother's construction business.
Yeah,
What kind of NFL player making $16 million a year average annual value on that extension? Now, he did restructure his contract last year, so $10 million. What kind of $10 million a year player is just doing construction for fun? He's just a different guy, and he's going to be missed. Oh, yeah. But you know what? That's cool. Football is kind of a melting pot like that. You get a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, and having a guy like that for the young guys who, hey, my off season, I'm not just sitting at the beach. I'm doing construction, baby. Like that's a good example. You're doing something really productive with your off season. And you know what? I don't know if you guys have ever done construction or manual labor down in Brazil. My dad ran a grass cutting business. So there were days where I would hold a weed whip and that elbow would be like this for 12 hours. Like, it's hard work doing that kind of stuff. So that it's a great example for the young players, and that whenever he decides to go, he's going to be missed heavily.
Hall of Famer, Harrison Smith.
Yeah, of course. I want to say sorry for my 2005 because I'm nervous. You can see that, but you
dude,
understand, right?
Hey, this is just a conversation, man. That's the best part about podcasts. We're just having fun, just having a conversation. It's all good.
It's all new for us.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Don't stress. Just take a deep breath, and you know what? If you got a beer next to you, take a sip. And we're good.
It's on the fridge. I will be drinking one later. Celebrate.
There we go.
About the cornerback group, are you worried about the CB room? Like, do you think the Vikings need to add depth, or maybe with improved pass rush? I think we had the worst pass rush in the league last year. With an improved one, the group won't have the players won't have to like cover for 5-6 seconds, and they will kind of naturally be better. Or the Vikings will need to add someone else. I think the last couple of days there were some rumors about the Vikings being interested in Marshall Lattimore if he became available.
So, your first question was about the pass rush, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the pass rush. I think the pass rush is going to be significantly better, not because the talent is necessarily better, because they fit better. And Danielle Hunter is a better player than Jonathan Gennard. I don't think anybody's going to argue that fact. Jonathan Gennard is a better fit in Brian Flores' defense than Danielle Hunter. Why? Jonathan Grenard is very quick off the ball in getting into his pass rush. Danielle Hunter was not. And I think that's important when you have a very aggressive blitz-heavy defense that Brian Flores likes to run, because you need that quick get off on the ball in order to get that kind of pressure. Now, Hunter was still great, and nobody's going to say he wasn't. But I think Grenard could be even better in this defense. And I think Danielle Hunter going to Houston, his skill set's going to be utilized much better because of the style of play. I think the defense could be even better next year because of those changes. Now, the defensive line is still bad, but they were also 8th in rush defense with that defensive line. So maybe they just know something about prioritizing other positions. I don't know. I'm going to be intrigued to see that this year. But the Marshawn Lattimore thing, to kind of round out your question, Enrique, I'm really intrigued by the idea if the cost is right. Now, the Bleacher Report article that you're referencing, kind of that rumor, it was a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick to get him. That's not a bad cost. He's 28 years old, but he keeps getting hurt. And he does not have guaranteed salary left, I believe, on his deal. His cap hits this year for the Vikings in a trade would be like $1.2 million. Next year, it would be 20. The year after, 21. Those are very manageable numbers for where the Vikings are cap-wise. So they can easily make it work. And with those numbers, you could, hey, you're hurt a lot. We want you to take a pay cut and bring it down to 15. Or, hey, we want to just turn this into incentives where you can make even more money, but you have to stay healthy. And I think if you want to play with that, sure. I also think that your corners need to be a disaster to make that move. I think Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's strategy with cornerback is I want a lot of players. I don't want one, which Marshawn Lattimore is a very good player. But if you looked at the 2021 Bengals, the team that almost won the Super Bowl, there was a bunch of average cornerbacks. If you don't have a weakness at corner, you're okay, because they can't just target one guy. In this style of defense, if you have solid corners, I think you're okay. And the idea of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah kind of not prioritizing the position, but throwing, hey, fringe top 100 picks at it to try and like identify specific types of players, I think it's a really good strategy. Plus, corners, if you remember Xavier Rhodes, he kind of fell off a cliff, went from all pro to cut in 2 years. That's how corner is. So not investing a lot of money into the position, I kind of like it, but you still have to have those other guys hit and play well. And so far they haven't.
Just maybe the last topic we wanted to talk about with you. As I mentioned before, there will be a game here in São Paulo, Brazil. We asked, I think this will be a staple question to everyone that we have here. What's their opinions on a game being played here in Brazil, not the first ever game in South America, and the league's attempt to be more of an international brand, like the NBA is, like MLB kind of is in the Asian continent, like soccer is in the whole world, basically. And so the league's attempts to be more of an international, not just London, not just in England, but maybe throughout Europe, with a game in Germany, another game in Spain next year, and a game now here in South America.
I think it's good. Honestly, I'll be real with you guys. Brazil's always been one of my favorite countries. I've done multiple reports on it, like when I was in school. But let me ask you this, because you guys live there and you guys understand the geography. If I remember correctly, this game is not played in Rio de Janeiro, correct?
Yes, in São Paulo.
Yeah.
Why is it played in Sao Paulo? Is it a good location for the first game in Brazil? Like, this is general curiosity, because my brain would say, like, hey, you go to Rio. Rio is a beautiful city, and it's the capital. Why are we going somewhere else?
Eu respondo, eu sou daqui. Actually, as I mentioned, I live in São Paulo. I'm born here. Actually, not not even São Paulo or Rio are the capital. The capital of Brazil is Brasilia.
Oh, that's right. It's Brasilia.
Yeah.
I apologize. It's
It's
been
okay.
a few years since I've been
It's
in
okay,
school.
man.
No, it's okay. It's okay. São Paulo is Rio, of course, is maybe one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but São Paulo is not the capital, the country's capital, but it's like economically the capital. It's the biggest city. It's even bigger than New York in terms of population in area, and it's structurally wise, just in access to the stadium, the stadium itself. It was better. It was a better place to be held than in Rio de Janeiro, where the game will probably be played in Maracanã. The game will be played in Corinthians Arena, the Neoquímica Arena. It's real close to the subway. It's easy to access. There's a bunch of hotels near the stadium. So I think in terms of if you bunch all of that, not just kind of the city, but I think 3 or 4 other stadiums were considered to have the game, but also the space around it to tailgates and everything. The NFL wants to do a whole show, basically outside the stadium as well. So it was the better option.
Also,
Cool.
the locker room of Maracanã don't support all the players in the locker room.
Okay.
Because it's built for the soccer, right? So it's small.
We have like 23 men in squad, not 53 plus 20 coaches plus I don't know who else.
No, I think that's good information. I was genuinely curious because whenever you go to, like, if you go to London, you're going to go to Wembley Stadium first because everybody knows Wembley. So I'm always curious when the NFL chooses to go to other countries, why they pick the locations when it's not as known worldwide that, hey, this is why you're picking the location. So that's good info. I appreciate it. But I think it's great that they're going to Brazil. It's great that you're going to South America because there's so many fans outside of the United States. And quite frankly, it's good to go to South America more than it would be to Europe because the flight may be long, but you don't have a massive time change. Like you told me, it's 1 hour past Eastern time. That's not that bad. You go to England, 5 hours. That's when you can kind of get some of that jet lag, the time change. Like, I don't know if it's a sickness, but it kind of messes with you. 1 or 2 hours. Now, if you're West Coast, you're talking about 4 hours. Well, if you go to England, that's 9. So 4 is pretty easy. But I think it's great. I'm really excited to kind of see how the people of Brazil are in the crowd, because what I've noticed with some of these international games, you want to go see a football game because there's rarely, if ever, a football game in your town. Well, those kind of crowds are much different than if you go to Kansas City or if you go to Green Bay, where you're going to have a very partisan crowd for that one team. It's going to be less team fans than NFL fans. Where you go to Brazil, I think there's going to be a heck of a lot more NFL fans than fans of the Packers and Eagles. So I'm really excited to see what that crowd is like. I think they're going to be just excited to have football, and it's going to be a great crowd. But how are they going to cheer for both teams? To me, that's fascinating. I'm a pro wrestling guy, and you base a lot of what you see on the crowd reaction. So I want to see it. I think it's going to be great. It's a great way to help kick off the season on a Friday night. And I'm really excited. Do you guys have tickets to go to the game?
Yeah, I actually managed to get one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky ones.
That's awesome.
So the last questions, it's about Brazil. What do you know about Brazil?
Oh,
You know, if you don't know, we can teach you. Okay.
Yeah, we'll help you. Don't worry.
Oh, I used to know quite a bit about Brazil because, like I said, I used to do like class projects on it. When I moved elementary schools, I did it. I did projects on Brazil and Michigan both years, and my teacher had no idea, and it allowed me to get a little more in depth because I already knew like a lot of the basics. I lost a lot of that. I don't know a lot about Brazil anymore, but that was probably 15, 20 years ago. I do know that Rio, I really want to see what's the big statue? It's
Cristo Redentor.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest pieces of architecture I've seen, like in pictures.
It's huge.
Oh yeah. Like everything, just it looks beautiful. Obviously the rainforest is hopefully still there. I know that there's a lot of logging and stuff going on. Keep the rainforest, please. But no, I want to try and visit Brazil. My wife has a big travel bug, and I think that's one of the places we've talked about going.
It's a really good place. If you know where we're going, it's a really beautiful place to be.
Yeah, you mentioned about MMA in the beginning, right? Or
I do like MMA. I'm a big pro wrestling guy as well. I like combat sports. It's fun.
Did you know Vitor Belfort?
Yeah.
So you heard about his son is quarterback of Virginia Tech.
Wait, really?
Yeah, David Belfort. He's going to, I think.
You can Google now.
Season.
Is David Belfort.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell, man. I love it. I'm pulling up the depth chart right now. I don't get me wrong, I believe you. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna tell all my buddies because we're big college football guys. I can't believe I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
Is he there already, or is he going there?
I think he's going there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's going to be a freshman this year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so he'll probably be in line to compete for the starting job next year, the year after. They have Kyron Drones.
Yeah.
But no, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. NFL Brazil starts a show with him about his life and training stuffs like boxing and conciliate with football, his dad's. So it's really cool, man.
That's awesome. I'm going to keep an eye on David Belfort because I think that story would be so cool to see him thrive and succeed in college football.
No, everyone here, the Vikings fan base in Brazil, we were saying, "Oh no, I want David Belfort to be a Viking." I think maybe now we're probably hoping that JJ McCarthy will be a really good quarterback. We won't need David Belfort, but I think
same here.
Whichever team David Belfort ends up playing, the team will get a huge boost in Brazilian fan base.
Oh, absolutely. I lived in Fargo, North Dakota for a few years, and I think you can kind of make a one-to-one parallel in this sense. When Carson Wentz got drafted by the Eagles, the entire state became Philadelphia Eagles fans. The entire state, and it's North Dakota. Most of them were Vikings fans. Nope, they automatically became Eagles fans the second he got drafted, and it was wild. So I could completely see that happening if Belfort shows that he is a really good quarterback and can play at the next level.
Hopefully he can.
Absolutely.
I think everyone here is hoping for that. It will be a really cool story.
Oh yeah.
For us finish the recording, could you say salve para o Brasil? It's like a shootout to Brazil.
Okay, repeat it one more time. I want to hear it again.
Salve.
Salve.
Para o Vikings Brasil.
Para o Vikings Brasil.
Aê.
There we go. Salve para Vikings Brasil.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
I really
Tyler.
appreciate it.
You're welcome, guys. It's been a pleasure being on here with you tonight.
Thank you.
It was a really cool experience talking with you, Tyler. We really appreciate it. And I think the next couple of days we're going to subtitle the whole interview. But when it's out, we'll let you know.
Hey, let me know. I'll retweet it and put it on all my various channels and try and spread the word for you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you so much, man. I hope you can come back to in the future.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime you need, if it works out time-wise, let me know.
Okay, we'll keep
Okay,
in
then.
touch. Thank you,
Awesome.
Tyler.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Take care.
You too.
You too.